It's always been a dream of mine to do a standing drop kick, but
You want to live that dream out?
Do you want to teach me right now?
I'll take a drop kick. Right here.
Maybe at the end. Let's wait till the very end. I don't want to knock all this stuff over.
I'm Mick Foley, and you are watching Heavy Wrestle TV. Yeah.
What's up, Heavy Wrestle Freaks? I'm your host, Alicia Warrington. Today, I have a very special guest with me. This gentleman over here, you've seen him in WWE, WCW, ECW. He's a best-selling author, Hall of Famer, loves Christmas.
True, very true.
You can call him Dude Love, Cactus Jack, Mankind. I call him my pal. This is Mick Foley.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here. And from this perspective, you look to be about double my my height, right? It's a perspective.
That's why I set it up like this. I wanted you to look like the
I'm like the little
guy.
No.
This is actually as short as this chair goes.
All right.
We're in a hotel room.
Can we share with the world the Foley Warrington music connection? I was looking for a home for my music. We're talking albums, cassettes,
yes.
And I put something out. I was like, I just want to find. It's not like I was trying to make money off it. It's like, I don't want to bring the stuff. Like, yes. I don't want to throw it out. Like, I haven't listened to more than a couple albums in 15 years. Like, it's not going to happen. But I want someone to have my stuff. And then you sent me a message like, Mick, I still listen to albums and cassettes.
I was like, what are you doing with your Tori Amos collection?
Oh, I'm not part of it with that. Let's not be crazy here.
A few months ago, Mick graciously gave me a bunch of his records and tape collection.
Boxes started showing up at the house.
Boxes
right?
kept coming. Being a musician, I'm thrilled to have them. And they do have a very good home now.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Aerosmith, Heart, Tom Petty, Sabbath.
Tom Petty, because I'd been to a concert in Atlanta, and I can't remember who it was who liked me, but the guy had a connection to live Tom Petty soundboard recordings. So he had about 20 of them from, this is probably the early to mid 90s.
Now, Tom Petty, what other albums would you say are like big influences on you over the years?
Oh man, well I've gotten into...
What are Mick Foley's favorite albums? And when are we going to have a Mick Foley Christmas album?
Of like my favorite Christmas songs?
Anything. We see wrestlers put out albums all the time.
Yeah, well, Stone Cold Metal. Remember, it was like this. Did you know there? I mean, I think I said that in a negative way. I've gone into great detail about my love for Tori Amos's music and its unusual ability to motivate me. Somebody said like, "Wow, it's so strange." I saw it on Twitter. First of all, I should never get too caught up in Twitter, but it's so strange to hear Tori Amos use the phrase "@real Mick Foley" and "mother effer" so often in the same paragraph, and I was like, she must have called me a mother. I was like, why doesn't Tori love me? And what she ended up saying was, like, listen, like people get motivated by different things. Metal can be powerful. Like music is powerful in its own way. And she's basically saying, I'll tell any one of these heavy metal mother effers, that my music's as powerful as theirs. The only time I really listened to music was in my car, and I'd be driving down that road, especially at night, and I'd be thinking, that music would get to me, and I'd get those goosebumps, and I'd start thinking about promos and matches, and then the most difficult thing for me was like to try to recreate that. If I can get that same emotion, if I can recreate that, if I can duplicate the way I feel in the ring, that if I can reach out, like it's so real I can almost reach out and touch it. You know, I mean, I got pulled over so many times, and I just say to the police, "I'm sorry, I was in the zone." You know, like I apologize. Like I was thinking about my promos, and they knew.
Does that work?
They did, yeah. I mean,
I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
You know what? I was thinking about my promos, officer. Mankind and Santa Claus. You have to become those characters in order to portray them effectively. Yeah. We all have the light, the dark within us.
Yes.
But how do you prepare mentally to go from such polar opposite characters?
Mankind was more of a stretch. Like, you know, like it was part of myself.
Are you more Santa Claus than Mankind?
But the nice thing is, like, Mankind he was dark, you know, even Cactus Jack was, you know, wild and, you know, not brave, not fearless, because I was scared of many things, but would act and despite the fear, but I would get in that zone. Yeah, thank you for supporting Cactus Jack. Mankind was a lot darker, and I would have to go to, you know, to a place to be that character in the same way that I would, you know, in the ECW Cactus Jack. You've been around some of the guys. There are some real alpha males, you know, and I look at like, how did I ever survive in there? Like, I mean,
I don't get that vibe from Mick Foley at all.
But so the hard thing is now you're this guy without a hint or suggestion, or maybe the slightest hint or suggestion of deltoid or you know, just a hint. And I'm out there with these, you know, these alpha males who are, you know, bigger, tougher, stronger. Like, how do I hang with them? Like, you have to assert yourself. I would get so deep into character that people thought he's legitimately crazy. Like, you know,
I wouldn't go near Mankind.
I think I did. I didn't get messed with in Japan. In 15 tours, no one messed with me. Dee Snider is one of my few close, you know,
sister?
Yeah. And he said it was so difficult once they got successful. He's like floating in his pool, like, okay, now it's time to write my next angry teen anthem. Like,
it's hard to get into that mode, that character.
How am I going to do that? He would call me just randomly, and he would, okay, yeah, I got some stuff to talk to you about. Like, he really thought of me as like a soulmate. And he said, like, do you think because of the fact you've done these wild things, does it make it easier to embrace that gentler side? Like you know, I have a little thing in there in the Christmas book about how I was doing some scrapbooking. And it's like, okay, all you know, muscle car guys and, you know, hunter fishermen, like, I'll tell you what, I've got some old VHS tapes of me suffering greatly in Japan, like landing on explosions, wrapped in barbed wire. Like, while you're watching those, I'll be over here scrapbooking, you know, like, I don't need a cool, like, you know, like, I think I established my guy credentials a while ago.
So I told you we had Terry Funk on the show recently.
Yeah.
I asked him about your earlier matches together. He said that he wouldn't do them the same way because of the injuries and stuff and the physicality.
And I'm sure that being very honest with you is, I think some of those matches, if I had them do over again, I wouldn't, because of the physicalness of those matches, taking the headshots like we did. I would never take those again.
So do you feel the same way? I mean, coming away from a recent knee surgery.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, knee replacement. Look at, I can stretch it. I can actually can straighten it for the first time in at least 10 years. Yeah, keep in mind, Terry was 20 years, still is 20 years older than me, but when we were doing all that wild stuff in '95, so I was, you know, 30 and Terry was 50, so I'm older now than he was then, and I haven't been able to legally wrestle in a few years. So I was already, you know, technically done forever, and Terry was still working his hardest, and we were trying to build that promotion. So he says he wouldn't do them the same way. He would do them the same way. Have you ever seen? You know, we were in an independent show a couple of years ago, and Terry comes out.
I just saw him at a bloody independent show recently.
And a lot of people, you know, they may not know who he is, you know, unless you're a Terry Funk fan. You know, okay, who's this guy? And he's, you know, he's 72. And I'll tell you what, about 3/4 of those fans feel some sense of fear, and they get that feeling where they go, this part might be real, you know? So I'll tell,
Yeah.
I told the ring announcer when Terry came out, I said, he's not kidding. You better run. And he didn't run. And he got hit. And then he was wondering why he got hit. I was like, I told you, what part of you better run don't you understand?
You have had concussions and broken everything and multiple surgeries. Was the reward of wrestling as great as the sacrifices that you made for the business?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for the most part. You know, unfortunately, there comes a time when it's all right. Now it's my living, and that living, you know, that gets in the way of the art of it. That's why I look at the stuff that Terry and I did as being like the purest form. The match we had in January 1995, the first singles no rope barbed wire match, was the one I might be proudest of, because there was about 150 people in that crowd. For some reason they were booking the arenas, and they thought because they're booking in the southern part of Japan in January, like, all right, they don't have to heat the buildings. And so we were wrestling in like 42, you know, it was Sunday, near freezing, you know, people are huddled up, you know, it's hard to get the fans to do it because they're all wearing coats, and you know, there's me and like Rick Patterson from Canada, Tracy Smothers, like huddled over a kerosene heater. And that was the first time I ever listened to Winter by Tori Amos before a match, and I just got into that zone, and I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. And Tracy Smothers comes over and he goes, Cactus, he goes, promise me you won't do anything crazy out there. And it just struck me as the most absurd request. I just looked at him and I said,
you're going into a barbed wire
match. I said, you know I can't do that. Like I was, and I think of all the things I've ever said, like there were better promos cut, but that was like the most like badass line I've ever said. Did Austin Creed steal?
Yeah,
he did.
He did.
Did he ever acknowledge it?
He didn't, but he did his hair differently the very next Raw.
You called him on it too.
I had to, because, and I knew the moment that he got my hairstyle and stole it from me. It was at the Honda Center in Anaheim, August 8th, 2016. I was backstage. You walked by me. We talked for a minute. He was walking by, did a double take with his luggage to copy my hair. It was that moment.
Son of a nutcracker. Oh, God. Why not? Look, if I can admit to borrowing Terry Funk's entire au revoir. Come on, Creed. Come on.
Come on.
Throw us a freaking bone here. I'm calling you out, man.
If we start to see this kind of flop now from him, now it's on. Who are some of your favorite all-time female wrestlers?
If you wanted the best in female wrestling, you had to watch Japanese women.
Yes.
And it's my feeling, you know, I think part of the reason Terry Funk connected so deeply was because the Japanese culture for men was so stoic and heroic, and you didn't show emotions. And yet, then you'd go over and watch the women's wrestling, and like Chigusa Nagayo was like, she was a genuine heroine, you know, because they weren't afraid to show emotions. And then you have the divas who worked hard, maybe not given the platform, like post Trish, post Lita. I was a big Melina fan. I mean, I spent quite a bit of time writing about her. Like, really thought they may have missed the boat. You know, like she had a match with Trish that really opened a lot of eyes, but they weren't given the platform. You know, Beth Phoenix, you know, and Mickie James, like they were all really good. I mean,
I love Mickie James. I'm so glad that she's
back. Me too. Gail Kim, you know, Awesome Kong, like in their own way, they were
great matches
they were laying the groundwork long before WWE. So they want to say that these women really started the revolution. ODB. Right, like ODB is like, she is. I tell you what, right before the Hall of Fame induction, in my tie-dyed, custom-made suit, I went out specifically to go to ODB's food truck just to support her. You know, like
we always talk about that. We always want to go find her food truck.
Yeah, it's awesome. She's just a great young. She would be offended by me calling her a young lady, but I don't want to offend anybody. She's a fine young lady, you know. She'd probably smack me next time she sees me for saying that. Because she's an awesome chick.
She's an awesome chick.
I don't think she'll be mad about it. I don't think it's a secret that ODB has been enhanced. And I don't know why. I don't think I said, hey, tell me the story about this, you know. I don't think I would go there, but I remember talking and she was telling me, she was like, and she's got that great voice, she's like, well, you know, I'm kind of jacked. And people thought I was a dude. Just the way she's explaining these things to me, and like I just loved it. I thought she was awesome. Like, I'm kind of jacked. You know, people used to think I was a dude.
Are you okay with the chapter closing on your in-ring wrestling career?
Yes, I am. I am very comfortable with how my career ended. I never feel like there's a day that goes by where, you know, someone doesn't say something nice to me about what I did. Yeah, and I think the network has ensured that there's a whole new generation of fans that show up at these appearances who weren't even alive when they were like, you know, weren't alive until 10 years after I retired. I had a very minimal skill set, you know, so I had to, you know, find ways to make the things I could do more meaningful. And one of the easiest, you know, as far as decision-wise, was to just take moves that had some impact in the ring and do them outside the ring, which was not a good structural, skeletal, neurological idea, but it seemed like a good idea when I was 19. I mentioned I had a story for you.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I said, this is, I don't know, I hope I can do it justice.
Okay.
This is one of the best wrestling stories I've ever heard. I mean, maybe this isn't a good idea. I don't know. Somebody's getting a little emotional here. On the night of the shooting in Texas, when I went on the news stations, they were repeating news I'd already heard in the car. And I went to headline news thinking maybe they had something. Instead, they had forensic files on. And immediately I was drawn into the story about a 4-year-old girl who'd been brought into work because her mother could not find a babysitter. The boss insisted that she, you know, the child play in the parking lot. The mother protested, and yet when she came out like a minute later, here's her 4-year-old daughter laying down. Strange marks on her face, which the mother of the presence might take photos of in the hospital. Every forensic files I've ever seen deals with a deceased subject, and yet this subject struggled mightily but did not die, and was even interviewed later on in the show, and she had extreme difficulty talking. She talked, you know, on one side of her mouth, one of her eyes looked like it was greatly damaged at best, and yet she was this really brave young woman. And I was really touched by how hard she'd struggled. And then the show ends with the update that the mother is now going to studying forensic science, because she had helped. You know, they'd been able to determine that the marks on her face were tire marks, and she'd been run over. It was an extraordinary story, but where it takes a turn, where it takes a really strange turn. And I know if people are watching that, this doesn't sound like such a great story, and why are you telling us about forensic files? The last thing they put up is that Vicki Lyons died in 2011. Unlike most things, we go, oh, that's a shame. What's on now? I went, I want to find out more about this person. So I put in Vicki Lyons, you know, and up pops photos, you know, and it's clearly that young lady, and a wrestling video. It says Vicki Lyons versus Daphne. And I thought, well, that's clearly somebody else. She's not a wrestler, you know. And then when I look up cause of death or obituary, it said Vickie Lyons, and told the story. It said for the last 6 years had trained to be a wrestler with High Spots Wrestling. And I went like, so I go back to the video, and what was remarkable is that as soon as they put it on, it was like, she looked like she'd worked really hard. It was a small gym, but they had a little commentary, and they said, Vickie Lyons overcome a lot of personal adversity. I go, it's the same person.
Wow.
It's the same person, and she clearly had a lot of trouble, and Daphne was clearly, like helping her, and balance was really an issue, and the finish would be, as that people like to say now, like technically maybe it was a botch. The reason it was a botch is because she didn't know she was going over. And I did a little more research, and it said, somebody said, yeah, she trained for 6 years. I think she only had 3 or 4 matches, and they were all with Daphne. And Daphne was one of those people who would fall under the label of someone who was a good friend who I had fallen out of touch with. I went on Vickie Lyons' Twitter, and a lot of her messages were to Daphne. I saw, Daphne still followed me on Twitter. I said, could you maybe tell me a little bit more about Vickie Lyons? She seemed to be a friend of yours. And she got back to me and said she was my best friend.
Wow.
I've got her ashes, they're still with her. And I said, do you want to, like you said, no one talks anymore. Like, hey, do you want to talk on the phone? And we had the nicest talk. And it was such a empowering talk. You're reestablishing a friendship that you take for granted in this business. We take our friendships for granted in the wrestling business quite a bit. I said, yeah, I heard that, she only had 3 or 4 matches. And Daphne said, 1. Like, that was it. That was it. 1 match in 6 years. And she said she used to go over, hang out. She loved her energy. And Daphne said, hey, want to go to the mall? And the girl got like confused, but also touched. She was like, what do you mean? She said, we're going to go to the mall. And she looked at Daphne and said, you don't mind being seen with me, because she'd grown up where people were embarrassed to be around her. This little girl was supposed to be dead, then she wasn't supposed to talk, she wasn't supposed to walk. I don't think anyone would have thought she would, struggle so mightily to achieve a goal like that. I hope I did it justice. I wanted to write about it, but it's hard, it's difficult to write. And the difference is, like people can put in, they can listen to podcasts on the go. If you want to really do a subject justice, you have to write several thousand words, and no one's got the time to read several thousand words. So thank you for giving me a forum to talk about something that I thought was really important.
That's such an incredible story, and now I'm gonna have to look into her as well.
Yeah, please do. Vickie Lyons. It also made me realize, geez, Daphne was so good. She had that commitment to character, and she went a direction that no one else did, and came along a little too early. If I think at that time, the idea was, you can't be a WWE diva and look like that. But I thought she was really a groundbreaker. Loved watching her get into that character, and thinking back, I was like, when I was in TNA, I was like, I definitely want Daphne to be part of what I'm doing, and she was a really valuable part of it. So thank you, Daphne, for being you.
Favorite Christmas movie?
Elf.
First concert?
The Kinks.
Favorite wrestling finishing move?
I'm a pile driver guy. I know it's banned.
Best Christmas present you've ever received?
My son Huey made me waffle jelly cakes from Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol.
Worst travel partner?
My instinct is to go after Al Snow immediately.
Poor Al Snow.
But Al Snow was actually a great travel partner.
What's the better Christmas gift? The clapper or the chia pet?
They're both awful.
Celebrity crush.
One, you have to go with Beverly D'Angelo.
I knew it.
Beverly D'Angelo.
Mick, it's been nice talking to you. We're going to get out of it. It's super late. We're getting delirious.
Summer fun, something's begun. Oh, with this. I don't know. We can cut that part, right?
We'll just take that out.